guys, I'm Emily Edwards and I'm the host of Fuckbois of Literature. I figured the best way to start off booktubing content would be to give you a quick rundown of my favorite books. So the first one that I wanted to start out with doesn't have the title on the cover, but it is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. You'd think I would know this because I've done this video like 6 times before I started this one, but that's all right. So it's And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. My version doesn't have the title on the cover, but it is a fantastic whodunit without her usual sleuth, so no Miss Marple, no Poirot. And it's an oldie but a goodie. It's the first adult mystery book that I read when I was in middle school, and it always stuck with me. It made me absolutely love mystery novels to the point that I have a whole mystery shelf behind me, and it's also the genre that I write in when I write books. It's got a fantastic BBC adaptation starring Sam Neill that came out a couple of years ago, and it's on Amazon Prime. If you don't want to read an incredibly short, quick read mystery novel, then I suggest watching that because it's really good and it's really faithful to the book. But again, one of my favorite mystery novels, got me hooked on the genre, and it's one of my favorite books. Next book that I'm going to be talking about is Sarah Vowell. Now I have on this shelf behind me all of Sarah Vowell's books, but this is her most recent. It's Lafayette in the Somewhat United States. I love this book. I love the fact that it's actually not broken up into chapters. It's just one long narrative, and she goes into phenomenal detail of a story arc and also an emotional arc of why people fought so hard to make the United States what it is, what their motives were, and how it could have turned out differently. So this is one of my favorite Sarah Vowell books. If you haven't read it yet, I highly suggest reading it now because it does actually give a fair amount of background onto why we're in the shit we're in now too. The next book that I'm going to talk about is actually not a book at all. Well, it is physically. Midsummer Night's Dream, William Shakespeare, one of my favorites. I think it's my favorite because I think it's the most no-holds-barred, hilarious, funny Shakespeare play. I think it's better the wilder and crazier and more raucous and ridiculous it's played. I think that's why I like it so much. If you're going to be putting on a Shakespearean play, especially with kids, this one's actually really fun, even though a lot of people think it's more sinister than it is. I think if you play it goofy and if you play it silly and if you play it funny and hilarious, it is. That no one dies. That's why I like this play. No one dies and everyone gets married and there's nothing but happy endings, and it's just silly, and enjoy the fairies and run away to fantasy for a little while. It's A Wrinkle in Time. Madeleine L'Engle, whose last name I can't pronounce because my French pronunciation is garbage. This is a pretty typical go girl power kind of book that you read when you're in middle school, but I think it's one of those books that is absolutely fantastic for trying to blur the lines between girl books and boy books, which is not a thing. And so if you've got little boys who don't read books with female protagonists, Wrinkle in Time is probably a really good way to go. Get them to read it because it's very sciencey, it's very charming, and it's also one of these books that is fantastic as you get older because I just read it again in the last year or so, and I think it has a lot more depth to me now that I'm in my 30s than when I first read it when I was like 13, so like 20 years ago. And a spit star for the first person who tells me that I don't look my age in the comments, so thanks for that. And then my last favorite book is going to be a little bit weird because one of my favorite authors is Kurt Vonnegut, but this isn't one of his more famous books. It's Mother Night. It might be more famous because it was actually turned into a movie in the 1990s, which I've never seen. Pretty sure it stars Nick Nolte, who hasn't been around since the 1990s. It's about Howard Campbell Jr., who claims while he's in prison in Israel after World War II that he was just pretending to be a Nazi. And turns out you can't pretend to be a Nazi. You either are or you aren't. And if you aren't, you fight against them. You are what you pretend to be, so you must be careful about what you pretend to be. It's the basic moral of Mother Night. Can't believe it's actually a moral that is important to remind people of this day and age. And funnily enough, on YouTube, you should probably remind people you should not pretend to be a Nazi. You should fight against them. Can't believe I'm saying this in the year of someone's Lord 2019, but yeah, read this. It's actually terrifying this day and age, but it's It's actually my favorite book. First read it when I was in high school, and it's my favorite book of all time. So that is my first booktube video. I hope you like it. Hope I haven't been talking too quickly. Feel free to leave constructive criticism in the comments below because I just want to make this better and better. And also subscribe to this YouTube channel because I have more booktube content and also plenty of podcasts coming up for you soon.